Wasco State Prison, or WSP, located in Kern County, California, was the site of yet another murder to take place within the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. On March 14, 2025, at approximately 2:29 p.m., staff would observe incarcerated persons Jose D. Castro and Darnell Rodas attacking incarcerated person Angel Carrasco in Facility A. And although staff would immediately respond, quelling the attack by utilizing chemical agents and non-lethal weapons, exactly an hour and 22 minutes after the attack, Angel Carrasco would be pronounced deceased.
The 20-year-old is dead. He was pronounced this morning at 4:30, and the other victim, the survivor, was shot in the head.
Just another typical day in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department gang unit. The walls are filled with photos of dead gang members, and there's room for more.
This has been going on since the turn of the century. And the only difference is that the activities have increased to such a degree that it's catastrophic in nature.
Gang-related killings in the city of Los Angeles are down from last year. That's because many of the black gangs continue to honor a truce that was forged during the riots. Such is not the case in the county. Latino and Asian gangs are on a record pace for homicides because the gang population is growing and truce is not in their vocabulary.
People just pass by and they shoot. They shoot, and I guess shooting is fun, you know, but it's not fun. Because, you know, my friends of mine, they've been shot and they've been dead, you know, and that hurts me, you know. So that makes me mad. I want to go up to them and, you know, do what I got to do.
I don't think there'll ever be a truce, not with us anyways.
Why not?
I don't know. Just can't get along with nobody.
Got to keep going. It goes on, never going to stop.
It ain't going to die, it's just going to multiply. It's the way it is. Young kids grow up and that's all they know.
There were 771 gang-related killings last year in L.A. County. Those who work with gang members say they just can't envision the killings ever coming to an end.
They don't want to change. They'd rather leave it as is. They want to have the gang warfare, you know, with the other barrios. They don't want to forget what happened between them. They don't want to forget the homicides among them.
Why? Well, it's always been like this, you know.
These youngsters say the shootings must be slowing down because nobody in the neighborhood was killed in the last week. Greg Lamont, CNN.
Also new at midday, a Tulare County man has died after being attacked by fellow inmates at Wasco State Prison. 34-year-old Angel Carrasco was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder and taken to Wasco in 2009. On Friday afternoon, prison staff say inmates Jose Castro and Darnell Rodas attacked Carrasco. Staff used chemicals and non-lethal weapons to stop the attack. They began life-saving measures on Carrasco, but he died from his injuries. Castro and Rodas have been placed in restrictive housing pending the investigation.
And serving a life sentence for murder is dead following an attack at Wasco State Prison. It happened in the A facility around 2:30 Friday afternoon. The California Department of Corrections says staff saw two men attacking the inmate, Angel Carrasco. Officers broke up the fight with chemical agents and other non-lethal weapons. Carrasco was rushed to the hospital where he was declared dead a short time later. Investigators found two improvised weapons at the scene of the attack. Inmates Jose D. Castro and Darnell Rodas were identified as the attackers. They have been placed in restricted housing pending an investigation.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Green Lit Gang TV. Much love, much appreciation. Thank you guys so much for checking out the channel today. For everybody that has liked, subscribed, commented, you know who you are. It means a lot. Thank you so much. For those of you who have been down with this channel since the beginning, again, you know who you are. It means a lot. Thank you so, so much. Put a lot of time, put a lot of effort into these videos. We're never going to stop. We're going to keep grinding. And again, thank you for all the support. I really am nothing without the people that support this channel. So thank you again. Okay, going right back to the CDCR, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. We're going to be covering a tragic murder that took place at a Wasco State Prison located in Kern County, California. This murder took place, like it said in the intro, on March 14th, 2025. Angel Carrasco was a Sureno Gang member, was killed at the hands of other gang members. And, man, it's just starting to lose count, starting to lose track of all the homicides that have taken place just in 2025. And, of course, over the last 24 months, 36, 2-3 years. Again, we kind of keep pounding and beating the same drum, but CDCR, the way it is ran from the administrative level all the way up to Governor Newsom, something needs to change. I am just a little small channel on YouTube, on the internet. There are much bigger and better channels out there, but the message remains the same. It is not working. And I've got another video already loaded up, cocked, and ready to go from an incident that just took place at another California state prison. We're going to be talking about that in a couple days. So we're going to just jump right into it here from this article that breaks down the death of Angel Carrasco. California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation officials are investigating the March 14th, 2025 death of an incarcerated person at Wasco State Prison, WSP, as a homicide. At approximately 2:29 p.m., staff observed incarcerated persons Jose D. Castro and Darnell Rodas attacking incarcerated person Angel Carrasco in Facility A. Staff responded, quelling the attack by utilizing chemical agents and non-lethal weapons. Officers, here's that copy-paste part. Officers immediately initiated life-saving measures on Carrasco and activated 911. Carrasco was taken to the prison's triage and treatment area and then to an outside medical facility. A hospital physician would pronounce Carrasco deceased at 3:51 p.m. Officers began investigating the scene, investigating after the attack took place. They recovered 2 improvised weapons at the scene of the attack. No other injuries were reported, and officials have limited movement in Facility A, where the attack occurred, to facilitate the investigation. Rodas and Castro have been placed in restricted housing pending an investigation by WSP Investigative Services Unit and the Kern County District Attorney's Office. The Office of the Inspector General was notified, and the Kern County coroner will determine Carrasco's official cause of death. Carrasco, 34, was received from Tulare County on December 31st, 2009. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder and discharging a firearm from a motor vehicle at a person with enhancements for a street gang act and intentional discharge of firearm causing great bodily injury or death. Now, like we've done on the last few videos, I'm really going to be focusing on Angel Carrasco and his past history of criminal activity. We're going to be reading from his appeal that he filed in 2011. It's got great information, a full breakdown on basically the facts of the case and the crime that he committed and was ultimately convicted of that landed him within the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Rodas, 22 years old, was most recently received from LA County on February 28th, 2024. He was sentenced to 4 years for second-degree robbery as a second striker. That's just crazy to me when I read that, because you see a guy who's got 4 years, let's say 2.5, 3 years on good time, whatever it is, and now he's looking at, maybe 25 to life or something like that. Castro, 37, was received from Los Angeles County on January 13th, 2025. Man, he had only been in there 2 months and a day, basically, or, February's 28 days. So let's just say 2 months, and boom, he's active. He was sentenced to 21 years for voluntary manslaughter with an enhancement for use of a firearm. Wasco State Prison, located in Kern County. It opened in 1991 and houses approximately 3,900, that's a lot of people, incarcerated people, and employs about 1,543 staff members. The primary mission of WSP is to provide short-term housing necessary to process, classify, and evaluate people newly admitted to state prison physically and mentally and determine their security level, program requirements, and appropriate institutional placement. So when I read that's a lot of people are going to go here before they get sent out to their other housing assignments or other prison assignments. That's what that means. So it's short-term. So basically, let's say you're in county jail, you get convicted, or you plead out, and prison's in your future. Well, that prison bus is going to show up to whatever county jail you're in. They're going to pick you up, and if you're within this area, of Wasco State Prison, you're going to go to Wasco. So a lot of people are going to be running through there before they get their final assignment to whatever main, state prison they're going to be going to. That's exactly how that reads. 1,000-bed medium custody facility houses general population inmates to help support and maintain the reception center, and a 400-bed minimum custody facility provides institutional maintenance and landscaping services. So it's not a max security prison, but like we've learned, it doesn't matter. These attacks are happening all over California on all different security level yards, all different kinds of yards. Protective custody, general population, minimum, maximum, medium, it really doesn't matter. These attacks are going down. Brutal. Angel Carrasco was convicted on November 17th, 2009 of murder from a 2008 shooting that took place. He is a Sureno Gang member. We're going to be talking about his particular Sureno set he belongs to. Like I said, we're going to be reading from this. It was March 25th, 2011 when this appeal that he filed was basically published. And we're just going to be reading right from it. So, in March 2008, Rene J. Zamora and Angel Carrasco and Derek Romero were active Sureno gang members. Around midnight on March 12th, they participated in the fatal shooting of Vincent Chapa. This is, again, March 12, 2008. The victim was not gang affiliated, and this has happened a lot on my channel where you have gang members, Norteños, Sureños, whatever, and they assume that, or they tell, after they've maybe been caught, or they're telling other gang members or other family members, oh, it was a rival. We're going after rivals. We're going after people that were going after us. And a lot of times that's not the case. A lot of times these guys are just killing innocent people. They're on drugs. They've been out. They're just itching to start shooting a gun. They're just itching to commit an act of violence. They're just itching to show that they're down, and they're going to do whatever. They're more violent than the next guy. They're more down than the next guy. They want status, respect, and everything that comes with being a high-ranking gang member in whatever gang they belong to. An indictment was returned, charging Zamora, Carrasco, and Romero with murder on count 1 and discharging a firearm from a motor vehicle at a person, count 2. Special circumstances, lying in wait murder, drive-by murder, and street gang murder were alleged. Firearm discharge and street gang allegations were attached to both counts. In June 2009, Romero entered into a negotiated plea agreement. It limited Romero's prison exposure to 20, so he pled out. Basically, he's going to have to snitch. He's going to have to tell on Carrasco and Zamora. Okay, so Romero's going, okay, give me 27 years. I'm looking at a murder count. I'm looking at probably LWOP, life without parole. So in June of 2009, little over a year after the attacks, he goes, all right, give me the 27. Maybe get out after 20, maybe get parole after 15. I'll go ahead and tell against these other guys, and that's what happens. So in June of 2009, Romero entered a negotiated plea agreement. It limited Romero's prison exposure to 27 years in exchange for his guilty plea to lesser offenses and truthful testimony at trial of his co-defendants. Zamora and Carrasco were jointly tried, so a joint trial, that is crazy. And a lot of times I hear that the defendants do not like that. You do not want a joint trial. Doesn't seem to end well. Yeah, that's just in my experience of doing these videos, reading through these stories, studying these cases, even long before I had this channel, joint trials are never something that seemed to turn out good. They were jointly tried in November of 2009. The jury found them both guilty and on both counts, and it found all the special allegations. So all those gang enhancements, all those firearm enhancements, they were all found to be true. We've talked about those enhancements ad nauseum on this channel. Zamora and Carrasco were sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, plus a consecutive term of 25 years to life. A $10,000 parole revocation fine was imposed, and they were prohibited from contacting the victim's family. Basically, it's no contact order. Zamora and Carrasco separately appealed, and they raised different issues. This is Carrasco's appeal, obviously, we're reading from. Carrasco argues the jury was prejudicially misinstructed on accomplice liability. Also, he contends imposition of the firearm enhancement violated federal constitution double jeopardy principles. Neither of these arguments is persuasive. Carrasco also argues the parole revocation fines when unauthorized. We agree. Finally, he argues the no contact order is unauthorized. Respondent concedes this point, and we accept the concession as properly made. We will modify the judgment to correct the sentencing errors and affirm. So basically, he didn't win anything there. He got the $10,000 fine of the parole revocation, and there shouldn't have been a no contact order, but it didn't change anything for him. TR's testimony, okay? Now, really quick. Okay, here we go. TR testimony. This is just initials, and this is facts of the case. TR testified that he and the victim lived on the north side of Visalia, California. They spent the evening at the victim's house playing video games. Remember, this is all in Tulare County. Around 11 p.m., they drove to TR's house, and TR checked in with his mother. TR snuck out of the house, and the two of them started to walk back to the victim's house. A van passed them, made a U-turn, and came back towards them. They ran into a field and hid by lying down in the tall grass. The driver of the van parked and turned the van's headlights off. About 5 minutes later, the driver of the van started the vehicle and began to drive northbound. TR said to the victim, "Now is our chance. Let's make a run for your house." These are just friends, man. These are just friends hanging out. And they literally are getting hunted down by gang members. They began running towards the victim's house. The victim was overweight and could not run quickly. Although they started out together, the victim soon lagged behind TR. The van sped up and headed towards them. TR was approximately 15 feet ahead of the victim. TR turned around and saw the van slow as it approached the victim. The passenger side of the van was closest to the victim. When the van was alongside the victim, TR heard the sound of 5 gunshots. Then he saw the victim on the ground and the van drove away. TR did not see how many people were inside the van and could not identify any of its occupants. TR did not see who was firing the gun. He did not hear anyone in the van say anything. And that was the friend of the victim, Chapa, okay, who was murdered in this. And reading that is sad. Reading that gives you an idea. And the reason I do this is because it makes these cases real. Because when you just read committed a murder, committed this, committed that, a lot of times we're so desensitized to these things. And it's not until you really get into the finer details that you realize what was really done to these people's victims. And you know what? In this appeal, it doesn't say the victim's name, but his name was Vincent Ruben Chapa, and he was just a 19-year-old young man who was they were just going to play video games. They were, maybe sneaking out of the buddy's house and maybe trying to, but they were just hanging out. Vincent Ruben Chapa was not a gang member and lost his life. 2 gang members. And, we talk about second chances. We talk about things like that on this channel, and I do believe people deserve second chances. But when you read appeals with facts like this is what only a certain amount of people know, like law enforcement, like the victim's family members. And you realize why they are as mad as they are and why they don't ever want to see the person that committed this against their friend or family member released from prison. And that is why I covered these and I read from these, because it really, really... It doesn't put a face to the name, but it just makes it real. Let's just say it makes it a whole lot more real when you read from something like this. When you can picture 2 teenagers lying down in a field of grass hiding while a van circles them, looking for them. They're from the area. They're not dumb. They know they're going to be under attack. And the buddy turns to his friend and says, "Let's make a break for it for your house." He's overweight, can't run very good, and he gets gunned down. It's a little upsetting. Okay, going on. Now is our chance, yada, yada, yada. I did not see how many people. Now, this is Romero's testimony. So that was TR. That was the friend of Vincent Chapa. This is Rene J. Zamora's testimony in court after he agreed and pled out and got the 27 years. Romero testified that in 2008, he and Carrasco were members of Vickystown Sureno Gang. Vickystown, doing my research on that, I put a bunch of pictures of them up. They've been around for a very, very long time. It's actually the first time I've ever heard of this set. But very active, very violent, have a lot of respect in the streets. But again, they've been around a very, very long time. Now, actually, Zamora, he belonged to a different gang, but associated with VST members. Romero, Zamora, and Carrasco attended a party on the evening of March 11th. Zamora brought a gun to the party. He tucked it into the waistband of his pants. At around 9 p.m., they decided to go, quote, tagging. They got into a van. Zamora drove and Carrasco sat in the front passenger seat. Romero sat in the rear passenger seat. Zamora wore black leather gloves. He brought the gun with him. After tagging a few places, they decided to drive around Visalia to, quote, go catch somebody slipping. This meant they would, quote, go find somebody walking around and see if we can jump them. They drove around for about 2 hours and did not find anyone to jump. They were about to give up when Carrasco spotted 2 people close to a grocery store. Zamora drove into the parking lot and made a U-turn so they could catch the 2 people. The 2 people ran towards a field across the street and hid in some shrubs. Zamora stopped the van and turned off its lights. They waited for approximately 10 minutes and eventually they decided to leave. And this is what's crazy, and this is, again, why I love reading this stuff to you guys. Right as Zamora starts to drive away, TR and Vincent Chapa, right at that same moment, talk about bad luck, talk about awful timing, they decide to get up out of the bush and make a run for it. Had they just waited another 30 seconds, Zamora and everybody, they would have drove off. Carrasco, they would have been gone. But they got up. Basically, as the van starts to leave, Vincent Chapa and his friend TR get up at the same time, and they are spotted. They were both male. One later identified as the victim was chubby. The other identified as TR was skinny. TR ran faster than the victim and soon was in front of him. Romero was getting ready to jump out of the van because he thought they were going to jump the two men by throwing blows. Romero saw a white truck coming towards them, so he tried to convince the others to leave. He almost convinced Zamora, but Carrasco said, quote, "No, drive up close to them." Carrasco said something else to Zamora that Romero did not hear. Then Zamora handed Carrasco the gun. Carrasco placed it on his lap. Zamora drove the van towards the victim, who was walking now. Zamora slowed the van as it neared the victim. Zamora, Carrasco, and Romero all said south side to the victim because they thought, quote, he was northern, and they wanted to intimidate him. Carrasco asked the victim where he was from. The victim did not respond, so Carrasco repeated the question. The victim, quote, mumbled north side. That's according to Carrasco. Then Carrasco says, F that, this is south side. Carrasco stuck his head out and right arm out of the front passenger window and fired a shot at the victim. The shot missed the victim. Then Carrasco fired 2 or 3 shots at the victim. Romero knew the victim was hit because he could hear him scream. Then Zamora peeled out and drove away. Zamora and Romero shook Carrasco's hand and congratulated him. This is what really happens, guys. They parked for a short time. Carrasco gave the gun to Zamora. Zamora examined the gun, determined if there was any ammunition left because they wanted to, quote, do it again. Zamora was still wearing gloves. They were out of ammunition, so they decided to go back to Hanford. On the way to Hanford, they noticed a patrol car following behind them. Carrasco threw the gun, gloves, bandana, and spray paint can out the passenger window. Shortly thereafter, the patrol car pulled the van over, and they were all arrested. About 5 months after the murder, Romero decided to drop out of the gang. He thought Zamora was planning to kill him. Romero admitted he wrote poems about gang murders prior to the shooting. He intended to put the poems on his MySpace page to intimidate rival gang members and increase recognition of VST. Again, remember, that's Vicky's Town, Sureños. The jury was instructed that if it found the charged crimes were committed, then Romero was an accomplice. Goes on to talk about other evidence, physical evidence. The victim was shot twice in the chest and died at the scene. A lead slug was removed from the victim's body. A criminalist determined it was consistent with a .38 caliber bullet. A neighbor went by FG testified he heard, quote, burning of tires on the street and 5 gunshots. He looked outside and saw a van speeding away and a person lying on the ground. Another neighbor testified they heard at least 5 gunshots as well. TR and FG were driven by police to the location where Zamora's van was stopped. They identified this van as the vehicle they saw. So basically, they drive the friend and the neighbor to the location where the van had pulled Carrasco, Zamora, and Romero over. Carrasco tried to throw the spray paint, the gun, the gloves, all that out the window. Not very good at committing crime. Carrasco's fingerprints were lifted from the spray paint can. Carrasco's fingerprints were lifted from the van's exterior rear passage sliding door. Romero's fingerprints were lifted from the exterior hood on the passenger side of the van. And a GSR test, gunshot residue test, was found on both Carrasco and Romero's hands. Gunshot residue was not found on either Zamora's hands. Gunshot residue was found on the interior of the van. Zamora's bedroom was searched. A small bag containing 2 .38 caliber rounds was found inside a dresser drawer. And basically they matched up to the gun. They said, yep, these could be shot by the revolver that was used in the murder. They talked about how Zamora posted on his MySpace page depicting him flashing a gang sign while holding a gun as it was handled wrapped in a blue bandana. And a gang expert would testify, VST is a fast-growing clique of the Sureno Gang. The Sureno's primary activities include homicide and assault with a deadly weapon. In the gang expert's opinion, Carrasco, Zamora, and Romero were all active Sureños on March 12th. Neither the victim nor TR had any gang affiliations, and based on hypothetical, a gang expert opened the shooting was committed in furtherance of and for the benefit of a criminal street gang. So there you guys have it. You read stuff like that and you go, oh, that's why they got such a harsh sentence. Or, oh, that's why they're never getting out. 19's a kid. Vincent Chapa was a kid, playing video games with a friend, and because he was overweight and couldn't outrun his friend, he was murdered. And then you read about, when you read the testimony of what was said and how they wanted to do it again, and how at first it was just to be, we hop out, we jump him, we beat him up, which is bad in its own right, pretty awful, but he's going to live to see another day. And Carrasco said, nah, whisper something, gets a gun, and shoots off 5 or 6 rounds. It's no joke. This is what happens. This is what goes on a daily occurrence. And then you fast forward, for Carrasco, that happened in 09 or 08. He gets sentenced in 09. He's been down for 15, 16 years. And you talk about karma. Again, I've asked people to leave their thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe in karma? Carrasco finds himself on the other side of being outnumbered when he was murdered on March 14th, 2025 in Wasco State Prison. So, want to know what you guys think? Leave a comment down below. Until next time, much love, much appreciation. You already know what it is. Peace.